Good morning. I'm honored to share with you a faith story as we dedicate our new banner that flies in our yard. The Anti-Racism Committee proposed and the Congregation Council approved that Good Shepherd Lutheran Church would produce a banner and hang it on our property that reads, "We believe Black Lives Matter." And underneath that is a quote from Micah 6:8. Do justice, love kindness, and walk humbly with God. If you look at the statement, and I know there is some controversy about this, and I'm saddened by it, but I welcome it actually as a part of our conversation and ongoing journey as a church. Black Lives Matter, if you look at Wikipedia, is a decentralized political and social movement protesting against incidents of police brutality and all racially motivated violence against Black people. Interestingly, the statement Black Lives Matter is not trademarked by any group or any individual. The movement for Black Lives is a broad-based coalition of about 50 organizations that have been protesting since really 2015 with the confluence of the murder of Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri, the choking death of Eric Garner in New York, and the fatal shooting of Tamir Rice, an African-American 12-year-old boy in Ohio. There obviously are thousands more. And a recent Harvard study said that Black people are 3 times more likely to be killed in an encounter with the police than our white brothers and sisters in this country. The movement that we've seen really, I think unless we've been living somewhere else, we all saw when George Floyd was murdered on May 25th of 2020. And it's estimated that between, I think, between 15 million to 26 million people have participated in Black Lives Matter protests since that particular murder last year. So this is a broad-based movement, and it is a statement that isn't meant to exclude, it's meant to include all of us as community of faith and people who live in communities that see injustice and want it remedied. This matters deeply to people of color, but it matters to all of us that we see injustice and remedy it. I want to tell you a story about how this hits home. I don't know a single person of color, Black or otherwise, who does not live in some form of fear or trepidation or nervousness when it comes to encounters with law enforcement. That is a sad statement to make. That doesn't mean that all law enforcement are bad. However, the numbers do not lie. The numbers and the evidence suggests over many, 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 many years that people of color, but particularly Black people, are far more at risk in any encounter with law enforcement. When Madeline, my youngest daughter, was 10 or 11 years old, I picked her up one evening from piano practice, and I was on my way to pick up Sydney, our oldest daughter, from orchestra practice. And Sydney was waiting outside behind, in the back of GW Middle School, and it was nighttime and it was winter, so it began to get dark faster. And so I was driving from one location to another, and all of a sudden I hear, ooh, and I see the lights behind me, and it's a police officer pulling me over. And I knew I wasn't speeding. I knew I hadn't done anything wrong. There was nothing wrong with my car. And he walked up to me. I had both hands on the steering wheel. I had already gotten my license and my registration out. And he said, "Ma'am, did you know you ran a red light back there?" And I said, "Where, sir?" And he pointed to an intersection. And I said, "No, I did not, sir. I have a child in the car and I don't do that." And he said, "Well, I'll give you that." And then he said, began to pepper me with questions. "Where are you coming from?" I said, well, I've just picked up my daughter who's here from piano practice, and I'm on my way to pick up my other daughter who's waiting alone for me at GW Middle School in the dark, and she doesn't have a cell phone. And he said, well, where'd you come from before that? I said, work. Where's work? Washington, D.C. Where are you headed now? I'm going to pick up my 13-year-old daughter who's alone in the dark behind GW Middle School. And I just kept repeating that statement over and over again, trying to remain calm. And every single time he asked another peppering question, his hand was on his gun and he moved closer to my window. It was terrifying. It was intimidating. It was dehumanizing. And at the end of the day, he said, well, I'll let you go this time. There was absolutely no reason he had to pull me over. None whatsoever. And yet I knew within inches of me was a weapon that could take my life and could possibly take my life in front of the eyes of my 11-year-old child. These things are real. The fear that we feel is real. And when I drive around the city of Alexandria to see other churches and businesses and homes with posters and banners that say Black Lives Matter, I want my church to say that too, not just for me, but for everybody who looks like me and everyone who has ever had to experience something that scary before or worse. This is an important statement to make so that we become a bigger table. If we're serious about creating a welcoming climate, if we're serious about becoming a more diverse and inclusive and welcoming church, if we're serious about living into our core values, which suggests that every single one of us is a child of God and should be treated with dignity and respect and be treated equally, then this is an important first step. To just make the statement, Black lives do matter. If Tamir Rice and George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Philando Castillo and so many others were still alive, we wouldn't have to say Black Lives Matter, because the evidence to us as people of color is that maybe that's just not true, that Black lives don't matter, or at least not as equally. And so I want to thank the Congregation Council and the Anti-Racism Committee for doing justice. And doing justice means more than just feeling outraged. It means expressing our values. It means taking affirmative action to make a statement about how we plan to seek justice and to bend the moral arc of the universe toward justice. Thank you.